the Catch Wrestling Alliance, where we help you to wrestle better so that together we can keep real wrestling alive. Thank you very much for joining me. Um, so first things first, let's get the announcements out of the way. You can totally look up. So we're going to be talking about a video, and actually, thank you very much to one of our listeners, one of our fans. Kieran sent an email with a link to this video that we're going to be like basing the talk on. I'll have the link in the description below. Also, other announcements. So say like with regards to training, of course, if you're ever in Los Angeles, you can train with us on Thursdays, Thursday nights at Fight Science MMA. Also, right now, we're going to have a couple more classes at UCLA, the university here. So someone actually who wants to take classes, who's not a student, you can basically, it's a public university. And so then they were saying that if you go to the UCLA Recreation website, but basically you would just have to join the gym itself, which means you have access to like weights and other types of like a cardio, like it's like a regular gym, but we also have classes there. So right now we're all on spring break. It's the spring break time of the year, but we'll be back in a couple weeks with even more grappling classes, and also I teach like Sanda kickboxing and stuff. So that's that. If you ever want to support us, you can support us directly on our YouTube channel. We have all these different videos and stuff for you to watch that are for members only. If you ever want to train with us online, you can at catchwrestlingalliance.com. Also, something that's really cool is that the website platform that we use for our courses and stuff, it's called Kajabi. They've totally revamped their whole website. So they've even added a really cool AI feature. Of course, everyone's like adding some kind of AI feature, but this one's really cool because it specifically analyzes your website. So basically, if you have anything that you're good at teaching or anything that you have to teach, Kajabi is basically like an all-in-one platform. And now they've added this AI feature that all it does is just analyze like your website, what you're doing, and then you can like bounce ideas off of it, and it can help you basically like optimize your website and tell you ideas about like what you can be teaching next and whatnot. So it's like really helpful. It's all in there. We should have a link to it in our description here. Actually, let me go ahead and just make sure that's in there. Actually, I don't think it's in there, so at the moment, but at least we'll have the link soon. So if you watch this later, actually, let me see. I think I can do it right now. Totally put the wrong thing in there. So I want to keep the Armchair Violence. So we're gonna be talking about a video from Armchair Violence, another popular or someone like it's a popular YouTube channel, but um, um, also let me just get that. Okay, so that's there. Okay, it's in there. So you can have the link to Kajabi. They also have all these different discounts and stuff. You can try it for free, or I think they also offer like longer trials, like several months. So then for those ones, you'd have to like pay a small fee so you can try it out. But yeah, if you're a teacher, it's a great all-in-one platform. So you can save time and money by having everything built into one platform. Okay, so with all the announcements out of the way, thank you, Kieran, for sending me this email regarding the Armchair Violence video. So the main point of that video, so I didn't cut up any clips for it or whatever, but the video is called BJJ is wrong about grappling. So the arguments are he does just a few arguments about it. So kind of like with regards to jiu-jitsu and MMA, which I think they're all valid. So let's kind of go over the main points. So the divergence of BJJ and MMA. So they argue that while BJJ was once the foundation of MMA, the sports have diverged. Pure sport BJJ habits, like staying on bottom to work for a sweep, often led to losing fights in modern MMA. So yeah, totally valid. Um, Great. I mean, there's really nothing to say there, but except for, yeah, you got to be looking at the history. So, UFC was started as a um, like a marketing device by the Gracies to promote jujitsu. So, even though a lot of people think like, oh, it was absolutely real, and they still kind of like they kind they wanted a specific type of person fighting in there that they felt confident that jujitsu could beat. So um, it was definitely more marketing than anything, but it really worked, right? Okay, so next point. And then, yeah, go ahead and keep commenting, and I'll get to your comments soon. But I just want to get over these couple different things because it totally reminded me of something that Roy Wood, my coach in England, said a long time ago. So I think I just want to set this up first, and then we'll kind of talk about that. So, next point that armchair violence makes is bottom guard is not real. In a fight, being on the bottom is a ticking clock towards defeat. The danger of being punched in the face far outweighs the statistical likelihood of hitting a submission from the bottom. Yeah, it's kind of like what's going on even with the combat jujitsu and stuff, where you can use slaps and stuff to kind of loosen up the other. So like a lot of times, like the person on top can be slapping the other person, and that will get them distracted enough so they can set up their submission. Okay, so next point, and also well, with regards to MMA, like you can be dropping elbows and all that. And if you're thinking about like Asian MMA rules, like in like Pride, and Pride doesn't exist anymore, but you can also do it in one championship where you can knee the grounded opponent, right? So something to think about. And the other point was the problem with recovering guard. Recovering guard is often a waste of time because it makes it harder to stand up. Right. The video suggests that forcing the pass to initiate a scramble or turning to turtle to stand up is often safer than staying in closed or half guard. This is something that I noticed that's happening in MMA. It's like they discovered wrestling in a way. They've been talking about how wrestling is really good, but I think they're at first when people in MMA were talking about the benefit of wrestling, it was more about like being on top, like staying on top. But I think recently they've discovered the quad pod and using instead of just like staying chest to chest to opponent, like say if I got taken down I'm taken down backwards, so we're chest to chest. Um, People will instead of staying chest to chest or pulling guard, they'll turn away from the opponent and go to turtle, and then do quad pod, where they basically they get their butt in the air, and then it really makes it easy to get back to standing. And that's happening a lot now in MMA. It's like just becoming the way um, of getting out from underneath. Next point. Side control paradox. Interestingly, the video claims that being on the bottom side control can be better than being on the bottom guard. The opponent has to use their arms to hold you down, meaning they aren't punching you as much. So it kind of goes to what I just said, where it's like it's much easier to turn away from the opponent, get to turtle, get to quad pod, and then get back to standing. That's much better than even half guard with regards to escaping, especially if someone's like on top of you and then trying to drop their elbows and whatnot in an MMA fight. Totally valid observation. And then he has two more points. is position instead of submission. The traditional mantra of position before submission is updated to the position instead of submission. So in a fight, you should rarely sacrifice a dominant top position to chase a finish, like sitting back for an armbar, because a failure results in being on the bottom. So this is one of the things that kind of resonated with me a little bit, is especially um, with the idea of catch wrestling having used a lot of leg locks. And one thing that's pretty cool is that the big time jujitsu like legend, and I guess he has a history degree. So Robert Drysdale has been writing history books about the evolution of jujitsu. Even he is talking about, like, yeah, definitely leg lock stuff came from catch wrestling, and his evidence primarily comes from language, right? Because he was saying the Brazilians, they don't use like Japanese or Portuguese to talk about certain locks, and one of them that they use English for is like all the leg locks and some of the shoulder locks and stuff. So he says that's like kind of like primary evidence that all these things came from catch wrestling. Um, but back to armchair violence thing, is nowadays a lot of people, well, actually staying with the catch wrestling thing, so a lot of times these toe holds and stuff like that were used to get someone to move the way you need them. And of course they can end up with a submission, but a lot of it was primarily used to move the person, right? And so, but what you're seeing a lot now is like people, um, just thinking of the leg lock. Excuse me. Sorry, I had to clear my throat. um, you're seeing people like falling back a lot for the leg lock, right? So if someone is pretty good at defending the leg lock and escaping the leg lock, then as you fall back, they can stand up, put their weight on their foot, nullifying your submission attempt, and then they can drop elbows on you, right? And so in the case of the armchair violence video, he's talking primarily about uh, jiu-jitsu and MMA. So yeah, there is that danger of falling back, and then a person can counter you, and then all of a sudden you're on bottom, um, and it'll be tough to get out, especially if you, in his opinion, if you do like the whole guard thing instead of turtle, quad pod, standing up. So you might get stuck. Okay, so the next point that he brings up is urgency and physicality. So unlike sport grappling, which values patience and flowing, fight grappling requires extreme urgency, explosiveness, and the use of strength athleticism. The video argues that grappling with strength and rage is a valid and necessary component of fighting. This is around the 18 minute mark. Um, Totally. This is definitely what you will see, especially in sport fighting. Because yeah, I mean, if you can overwhelm someone, you can totally uh, like just like overwhelm them, and then if you can overwhelm them, then a lot of times you can win, right? And if you can win really fast, great. And actually, you're seeing this, or at least it makes me think of a lot of the kickboxing matches in, like, say, like one championship, because one championship now is based in Thailand, and their CEO is Thai, and he loves promoting a lot of the Thais. And of course, even a lot of their events are like Muay Thai based. But in a way, like the kickboxing rules matches are somewhat like the equalizer in a way, because you have like these great kickboxers coming out of Japan. Now you're having some up and comers coming out of China, and and of course other, like, say, the Dutch kickboxers and whatnot. But like, you're seeing these people from the non-Thai kickboxers just like blitzing the Thais, and getting knockouts and all these things, because Muay Thai does have kind of like its own culture and its own way of having matches, right? So when someone comes in from another country and then with strong like boxing and strong kickboxing, we've seen that recently where they've quickly been able to beat a lot of the ties. So that kind of goes to that idea where it's like the urgency and physicality, just dominating in a match, right? So that being said, I'll go ahead and go to some of your questions and comments right now. But I do have this whole thing about like how does that relate to catch wrestling? So I think Armchair Violence makes a lot of valid points. His video is pretty solid, but then I want to kind of relate this to what we do in catch wrestling and the whole idea of not just MMA, but if you want to take that further and talk about self-defense, because I think this is where catch wrestling would actually shine with regards to not only MMA but self-defense in particular. All right, so let's go and get to some of your questions first, and then we'll come back to the next half of the things that I prepared for today. Okay, so Tamade Wachimil, working on the back is valid, but not always viable as a top resort, but a good backup. Yeah, it's always good to kind of understand. Yeah, that's kind of the way I feel like. Um, say like even though I do wrestling and stuff, I find it fun to learn about say like rubber guard or stuff like that, even though I don't really use it ever. But I think it's fun and it's kind of good to understand these different things. And like I said, it can be fun. All right, AZ Ray videos. Guard definitely works, but it can also lead to injury, and being open to scramble is more viable. Yeah, especially if you have some good mat wrestling, so good wrestling fundamentals. You can get back to standing, and I think that's why we're seeing a lot of people using quad pod in MMA. It's like they discovered this old thing, which is great. Good for them. Better than taking a lot of damage. Our Easy Ray. BJJ does creative movements from guard and whatnot, but in a self-defense setting, you wouldn't want to be on the ground in a street fight. Yeah, so we'll totally get to that right now in the next segment. Taquero Man 91. It's also easier to be in control while being on top. You can only be in control on bottom if there is a knowledge gap, especially if the guard players know leg locks and footholds. Yeah, great point. So, and I think that goes to one of the last points in the video regarding even leg locks, where a lot of leg locks that people are doing are like ones where you fall back onto your back. If the person knows how to counter and then get on top, then you might be in trouble. Pace Hardlight. Hello from the Las Vegas Airport. Oh, thanks for watching. I don't know if you're still watching, but yeah, hopefully you made it through the TSA and without having to wait hours. We have a lot of if people who are not in the United States right now. We have a partial government shutdown, so a lot of the security at our airports, at most of our airports, um, they're working without pay actually. So it can it can create very long lines to to get through security. Right. Taquero Man 91. Only contrast I can see to this argument is that BJJ players often beat catch wrestling in grappling matches, but that also would be a rule set thing. I remember also Barnett doing work in Metamoris. Yes, you can have a top down approach. And then I think also with flow grappling, had all these matches where they had like some of the best U.S. Um, like freestyle wrestlers, and they weren't just freestyle, right? A lot of times they transitioned to freestyle after graduating college and for folk style, and but basically some of our best amateur wrestlers, and I think they all got submitted. Um, but I want to kind of appeal to that, whether that no true Scotsman fallacy. um, with regards to catch wrestling, it's like I think we do have, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, I think we have a lot more people who are not who are like jujitsu based, claiming to be catch wrestling. So then it's crazy because personally I've seen a lot of people who are like claiming to have a catch wrestling class, and then they show pictures and stuff from the class or video, and then like they're all teaching like guards. They're teaching like jujitsu to us. Um, so I think we probably have even less actual catch wrestlers than I'd like to believe, right? So um, yeah, especially if they're kind of reverting to jujitsu stuff and not doing the top game and the mat wrestling and all that, because it's totally different. It's definitely different from a lot of the stuff that. So, like I mentioned, Robert Drysdale. I think maybe the next podcast I want to try to do like a synthesis or like at least a um, some kind of like a summary for you all about like his discoveries on the evolution of jujitsu, and it does seem like catch wrestling didn't play as much of a part, and I've always kind of felt that way because if you look at some of these old judo and jujitsu manuals from the early 1900s or late 1800s, they're not doing mat wrestling, and that's like this big part of catch wrestling, and uh, and so basically I want to uh, kind of get it straight from the one of the more like leading experts on the who's done research on the evolution of jujitsu, and he's found a lot of different interesting things. So I kind of want to put something together for you guys. So that'll probably be the next podcast. So hopefully that's interesting to you, because what I thought was really cool is that where cause we have all this lore, and even the whole idea of like Maeda and all these different people who might have competed in catch wrestling, but maybe not have as strong a connection as the mythology might suggest. But it's like mythology, so people hear it over and over, so they believe it. So I kind of want to highlight some of these things that Drysdale found, because in a way, it kind of is. If you look back at some of these old books or old images and stuff, you'll see that the links might not be as strong. So I kind of want to show those. So all right, so let's go ahead and get back to the main point. How does that video from Armchair Violence regarding jujitsu and MMA, especially regarding like striking and stuff, and being like pulling guard when someone's like elbowing you in the face? He has a lot of valid points, but how does it relate to catch wrestling? All right, so um, one of the main things so I got a list of bullet points that I want to bring up. So number one, top control and riding. So catch wrestling emphasizes staying on top, using rides to break an opponent down. Right, the videos focus on back mount and keeping the opponent's face pressed into the mat. To make them panic is a staple of catch wrestling philosophy. So it's brought up around the minute 12 in the video. Um, so yes, riding someone, making it very miserable, being able to ride someone or is to make it where they can't get up. Definitely catch wrestling, definitely wrestling, especially more folk style, because unfortunately in freestyle wrestling, they kind of evolved away from that route, right? So in freestyle, you'll see them like lie flat, and you can wait for the referee to blow the whistle and then restart you. But that's definitely one thing that makes it relate to catch wrestling. So, uh, and then one interesting thing is speaking about Drysdale and the history of jujitsu, where he was talking about like some of these rule sets of the early like jujitsu tournaments, like from back in the 1950s. They one of the reasons why they value like neon belly or mount um, has to do with them having matches against like boxers and people who at that time might have not known much wrestling, or it's like more of a style versus style match where they might not have known how to get up from the bottom. That's what they were talking about, where it's like they if a jujitsu practitioner got to those positions, they can be dominant. They can be striking back, raining down their punches or setting up their submissions. But that's not so much the case nowadays, especially since like MMA, and you have a lot of people who are good at striking who would know how to escape from bottom. So you can kind of see the evolution, and that's one of the points that I really like from Drysdale's research, where he's like things didn't like they didn't just like fall from, they didn't just appear completed. Things evolved into existence. So, um, all right. So next point, submissions from top. All right. Um, so catch wrestling, we have a lot of submissions from top position, or things that you can actually kind of put together or find, right? Or like, of course, like neck cranks, and what we call top wrist lock, or in jiu-jitsu they call it Americana, different, or even key locks. Excuse me. Sorry, hopefully I didn't annoy your ears. All right, hopefully I didn't cough too loud. Okay, so yeah, different key locks and stuff from side control, which are really, really cool. You're seeing people do stuff like that, or even in jiu-jitsu evolving, like the Tarico Plata and all that. Um, uh, all related to like key locks. So, um, and how does it relate to the original video? He's talk he's talking about like, or when he talks about the falling back for leg locks, that would just be a non top down approach. Right. So you can see like in wrestling and catch wrestling, you can do so many things just with a top down approach. So you might not have to fall back and risk getting reversed, right? And having your opponent on top. And then the next point, what we've just been talking about this whole time, right? The turtle and escaping, right? So especially from like folk style wrestling, used a lot in folk style and catch wrestling. You're having people like knowing what to do from turtle, so you can get back to like say quad pod and standing back up, like which you see a lot in MMA. In catch wrestling, though, you definitely want to see if you can't not necessarily stand up, but see if you can't reverse them so that you're on top. That's one of the things that you definitely want to be thinking about. That's the approach you want to have, not necessarily just like turning and then standing. Might not be the main thing, especially if you're better at them. You don't have to be standing. That can be like standing up could be one way to escape, like a really good person, where you want to try to catch your breath and reset. But if you can reverse them and while you're on top, it's definitely what you want to do. Right. And so next point, aggression and pain compliance. Um, you can totally make the person on bottom uncomfortable using cross faces, uh, of course, using your weight and pressure, kind of getting your elbows in their jaws or their ribs and stuff. So you make them uncomfortable so they can move the way you need them to move. Totally valid. And then also the pinning mentality. Um, a lot of times, if you think about pinning them, so even if you're entering a jiu-jitsu match or MMA match, you'll find that you've like passed their guard, so that if you're able to control them and basically pin them, you're controlling them very well. Then you can set up your different submissions and um, and even say like your strikes if it's an MMA scenario, or even what a combat jujitsu scenario. And so those are kind of like the main points, and like how the original video can relate to catch wrestling, but we haven't talked about the self-defense aspect. So we'll go ahead and like take a pause to answer your questions or to show your comments. All right. So pace hard light. Folk was supposed to be for kids, and free was for international, from what I surmised. Yes. So when the Olympics, when they started doing the Olympics again, they took the two most popular wrestling styles, and so which were French wrestling, which they changed the name to Greco-Roman, and catch wrestling. So at that time, it was called amateur catch as catch can, and then eventually the name changed to the way it's called, like in French and Spanish, to freestyle. So both ways. So like for folk style and whatnot, since they absolutely had no submissions, then it's totally safe for kids. But then you see how like both, even though they have the same root, they all evolved over time. So um, you can still you could like say like learning catch wrestling can be beneficial for both freestyle and folk style. Learning folk style can be beneficial for both catch wrestling and freestyle. That's kind of one of the observations that the Japanese have made. So like the Japanese are really good at freestyle wrestling. Both the men and women's team are really really good. And I just like I didn't prepare this, but so I can't remember the name of the really good Japanese freestyle wrestler who said this. But I mean, all like so many of them are very excellent. But a few of them have been coming to the United States to train in folk style, and one of them in particular said that uh, in international freestyle competition, he's always had difficulty with the Americans, and he feels like it's because of that folk style background. So they're not going to be moving exactly the same as a lot of these other countries who only have freestyle wrestling. So I think they can all be helpful to each other. The mother, Robert Drysdale is interesting. He translated a lot of research from Roberto Pedreira. That's my best guess at pronouncing Portuguese. Oh, so actually, no, I'd be totally wrong even with Roberto, because they would say Roberto or Roberto. Anyway, I don't speak Portuguese. I just know a little bit about it, and sometimes I can kind of understand what they're saying, but it's still different enough to be its own language. Um, yeah. So anyway, he translated a lot, and so formed different conclusions. Yeah, actually, it's always good to read different sources, and to kind of create your own conclusions. But I just know, especially from martial arts, well, I think probably in most anything in general, but you see it a lot in martial arts where it's like there's this mythological past where people build up this myth, and that's what kind of gets repeated over and over. So um, everyone just believes the myth. All right, so it's kind of good to kind of take a sober look at what evidence is there. All right, yeah. So go ahead and keep your questions or comments coming, and then I kind of want to talk about the idea of the whole self-defense stuff. So I kind of mentioned it earlier. Some of you in the comments have mentioned it. So since the original video we're talking about is talking about jujitsu and MMA with striking, so self-defense, of course you can have someone striking with you or striking at, you're trying to fight with, trying to punch you and all that. How does that relate to what we're talking about, and how does it relate to catch wrestling? So I'm just gonna clear my throat one second. No, sorry about that. I was a little bit sick, and that's kind of why I hadn't done any live streams for a while. Yeah, they still have a little bit of uh, like sensitive throat, even though I feel better. Um, so, anyways, every once in a while I gotta clear my throat. But all right, so how does this pertain to catch wrestling, self defense, MMA, jiu-jitsu? Well, if someone is attacking you, you got to look at the law and stuff. So you don't just want to be going full on MMA mode where it's like you strike with them, and if you knock them out and they fall down, and you can continue, and there's because there's not going to be any referee to separate you, so you can like be, like if there's evidence, there's people watching or whatever, then or some closed circuit cameras, you can be arrested, and you can basically go from the victim to the perpetrator of a crime. So you always want to be more careful with regards to self-defense. So just think, regardless of where you are in the world, you have to, or the law base is roughly similar, where it's like you have to kind of meet their aggression with, you can meet it with some similar aggression, but you cannot be then just like once you get on top, right? If you take them down and get on top, you can't just be like breaking their neck or knocking them out, and because if they end up dying, could say, like, thinking about this is more like when you think about striking. If you guys are standing up, and then you say, if you punch someone, they get knocked out and then they fall and like crack their head on the pavement, then you can be in a lot of trouble. You can be in a lot of trouble. So that's why I think catch wrestling is even better in these scenarios, because you don't have to ultimately be striking to control someone. And catch wrestling has like this top-down approach, so you have a lot of these stand-up, say, like, not only takedowns, but even ways to kind of tie someone up, get control of them while standing. So it is like one of the ideal martial arts to learn for those types of scenarios, where it's like you don't have to even really risk the idea of like you hitting them just right in the jaw. They get knocked out, they fall down, crack their head. Um, so it's kind of funny. One of my good friends, who's a historian, Daniel Bolelli. I think a lot of you know about him. He does the History on Fire podcast. Uh, he and I met in college, actually. So I think he must have been a grad history student. But he did a post on his social media recently talking about, like, oh, what kind of strike can you do in self-defense? And he mentioned the whole idea of like knocking someone out, and then if they fall and crack their head, and you can totally get in a lot of trouble. So he was thinking, like, maybe just the traditional uh, groin strike might be just like the way to go, like in like in all of those types of scenarios where they might just, like, fall over in pain, but it's not as likely that uh, they could die, right? So there's these different things you want to think about. A lot of times for self-defense, it's all about uh, like kind of neutralizing some of their attack or their force, and trying to get away so that you remain like on the victim side as a victim, instead of just overpowering them and like potentially harming them or killing them. So you don't want to open that can of worms. It's that's the main approach, or that's the main way you want to be thinking about self-defense. So again, catch wrestling has all these stand-up like ways to control them, ways to take them down. Pinning is controlling them. All these different, so even like bar arms and stuff. So it's basically when you have someone face down. So we're talking about rides, and say you can do bar arms where you don't necessarily have to be hooked in. You can basically be keeping their arms behind their back. Um, you'll see a lot of bar arms in folk style still. They're good ways to roll the person onto their back, especially if they're face down. So you have all these things in wrestling that are excellent, and they start from standing, and they're not about like, say, like in judo, a lot of times they value like these high amplitude throws or whatever, where you're throwing someone over and like. Um, so with catch wrestling, of course, we have all these different things, but you don't always have to do that, and especially in traditional catch wrestling, since there's no points for these things, you can just have like a good kind of grinding type of way where you can just go in, close the distance, keep that person uh, under your control, and then you can take them down. I think that's a really good way to approach even self-defense. Um, if they keep coming at you, right, trying to subdue their initial attack, their initial force, and redirecting it and taking them down, you getting control, is really the way you want to be approaching self-defense. If you can't like create more distance and get away, if you do have to kind of like fight back, it just really makes catch wrestling really ideal, because even if someone's striking at you, you can like tie up the arms, see if you can't get control of the body, take them down. I think there was one scenario that happened recently. I can't remember where it was in the United States, but someone even with a jujitsu background uh, uh, like was able to subdue some. I think there was like a robbery or something going on, and I think the other person the jujitsu practitioner ran over and like tackled the guy and kind of kept. I think maybe he stayed on the guy's back, or but was able to control the person, uh, and was able to save a lot of people, I believe. I can't remember where it was. Somewhere in the United States. I mean, it was in the news. It was in the news. Um, so that's the kind of approach you ultimately want to have for self-defense. Because a lot of times, if you can grapple with them, then you don't have to be throwing punches and stuff. And I believe there was one thing I saw where it's like one of the big time knife defense uh, classes in the United States. Like like a lot of those classes really emphasize on the stand-up grappling, to the point where one person is like a lot of knife defense is like Greco-Roman wrestling, like the whole stand-up thing. So that's I tend to agree more with that kind of approach than just like trying to knock someone out, or relying on striking. It's like you should kind of expect that perspective from me, since this is like a catch wrestling and grappling channel. So we're gonna kind of take that approach, because uh, yeah, you can get in a lot of trouble if you really hurt someone with your strikes in a self-defense scenario. All right. Any other comments or questions? Hopefully that was good enough. And I really want to thank Kieran for sending that email. So just so you know, you can always message us. I think a lot of times, even through Instagram, it's usually pretty good, because Instagram will send a notice that someone is trying to send you a message. So if any of you find other things you'd like to hear about, feel free to, send the link. It doesn't have to be a YouTube video. It can be even an article or whatever. So really appreciate that. And yeah, we'll try to get back to doing the regular podcasts. It's just, yeah, I was like having more problems with my throat the past couple of weeks, but I'm recovered. And so I only coughed a couple times, or at least a few times here. So I feel much better. And so I'll try to get back to it on a regular schedule. All right. With that being said, thank you very much for your support. And, basically, we're here to help you wrestle better, so that together we keep real wrestling alive. See you next time.